Row 19. This is where the first window finishes. So we've got to skip over this stitch here and bring the two boundary stitches together. We're going to add an extra stitch to the channel, this time on the inside next to the new window, and we're also going to add the first live loop stitch to these cables here. So bringing the cables together around the first window is the first step in crossing the cables. First we bring them together so there's no gap between them, and then we go on to cross them. So we start with our usual front post extended single crochet. We work our 3 live loop single crochets, and that's the third one on the stitch holder there. And then we work the first boundary stitch on the inside as the extended single front post single crochet. So I've gone through the first loops and then I put my stitches onto stitch holder, so that's just the middle stitches. And then slip my hook out and yarn over, pull it through to complete that extended single front post single crochet. And then skipping over color 2, I go straight to the next boundary stitch and begin the front post extended single crochet. So this brings the cables together, and then I go on to work the 3 live loop single crochets. And then the second boundary stitch for this cable, and then I move my stitch marker up to the current row, picking up those 3 center stitches, and complete the 2 front post stitches. Now in the channel here, last row we increased on this edge, so this row we're going to increase on the other edge. So when I get to the third one here, I'm putting 2 center single crochets into the stitch, so putting my hook right into the center here for a second time to make the stitch. Then we go on to do our next boundary stitch of the new window. So front post extended single crochet, I've got 1 on the hook. At this point we're going to add the beginning of the cable with a live loop. So we're going behind the same front post again, pulling the yarn through, yarn over and pull it through again. So I've got 2 on the hook, and then I go to the next front post stitch and put my hook behind the post, yarn over, pull it through, yarn over, pull it through again. I've got 3 on the hook. Picking the center stitch with a stitch holder, and then I can can slip my hook out and just pick up the 2 boundary stitches, yarn over and complete those stitches. Now we go on to colour 2. So I chain to change colour after front post, and then I make my 2 center single crochets, and we'll go on to do the second cable the same way with 1 live loop single crochet. So behind the front post, yarn over, pull it through, yarn over, pull it through again, so I complete that first center post stitch. Then I put my hook back behind the post, yarn over, pull it through, and again to make the single crochet, but leaving it on the hook, and then we go to make the third stitch, which is at the outer boundary front post extended single crochet. I've got 3 on the hook at this point, and grabbing a stitch marker, we will hold that live loop stitch on the stitch holder, slip my hook out of the last 2, and then picking up the 2 boundary stitches will complete that pair of stitches. And then we put the increase to the channel here at the side closest to the new window. So putting my hook into the center stitch, yarn over, pull it through, and again, and then going back into the same gap between the 2 posts of the stitch, yarn over, pull it through, and again. So I've got 2 center single crochets there, and then I go on to make the remaining 2 center single crochets, and then of course we repeat 4 more times. So cable beginning here with 1 stitch on the holder. These 2 cables have joined up, and that's the row.